Hello and welcome to Every A24 Movie on Blu-ray, the podcast formerly known as Every Horror Movie on Netflix. I am Chris, here with Patrick.
Hello.
And Steven.
Hi.
And we are gathered here today to discuss Robert Eggers The Lighthouse, starring William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson.
William Dafoe.
Willem. Damn it.
Roberto Pattinson.
I almost said William Pattinson, and I was like, that's not right. Got to pivot to Dafoe, but I forgot that I had to pivot off of William as well.
Well, we're leaving that in because, listeners, we've had some false starts here today. And
we've had so many false starts. This has been, I'm descending into madness as we have just long set COVID. Up here. Yeah. But, anyway, as usual, to provide some level of normalcy before we talk about A24 movies on the Netflix show, we like to talk about what else we've been consuming in the horror world, what else we've been reading, watching, etc. So what have you guys been doing?
I've been ramping up my horror movie watching a little bit, as I usually do right around end of August or beginning of September. We reconvened our spooky movie club recently and watched the original NOSFERATU, which is still just fucking as creepy as ever. I wouldn't recommend necessarily watching whatever version of it is on Tubi, which we watched, and has kind of a whack soundtrack to it.
That movie is 100 years old.
101 years old, yeah, dude.
That's
happy 100th birthday,
crazy.
Nosferatu.
And it's still unsettling as fuck. Still unsettling. But yeah, don't listen to someone in our group described kind of a weird vocal part that was very unnecessarily added to the soundtrack as proto-Enya, which I think was appropriate for the vocal. The vocal itself certainly was not appropriate for the movie. But yeah, go watch Nosferatu. It's a fucking classic. Also revisited Army of Darkness, which I've been wanting to do for a while, and you know, it's still fun. Evil Dead 2 is still my favorite of that trilogy, but Army of Darkness is a stupid good time.
Evil Dead 2 is the best still, yeah.
Oh, it's so
nothing
good.
tops that.
No, absolutely not. It's like, yeah, they found the exact sweet spot of like horror and comedy and effects in Evil Dead 2. Like Evil Dead 1's too serious, Army of Darkness is a little too stupid, and Evil Dead 2 is just perfect.
To say nothing of Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, Evil Dead Rise was fun. I still nothing beats the tone of the originals. It just feels like almost a futile mission to try and follow up those movies because they're such idiosyncratic products of the Raimis and their specific sense of humor. But yeah, Evil Dead Rise was decent. What about you guys? What have you been watching or reading or whatever lately?
I watched, and I saw this when I was a kid, but I watched the 1999 The Mummy with Brendan Fraser.
Hell,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you know what? I try to be cool on this show. I try to be macho on this show. That movie's fucking scary, man. That movie's fucking scary. I was scared.
That movie fucking rules. Are you going to get one of those bumper stickers? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The one that says, "Show me the mummy"?
No, the one that's like, I'd rather be watching the 1990 whatever Brendan Fraser classic, The Mummy.
Yeah, it's honk if you'd rather be watching the 1999 cinematic masterpiece, The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz.
There you go.
That's your Christmas present this year, Chris.
Okay, great. But no, it was fine. You know, it's a fine movie. You know, I think you either are a nostalgic super fan of that movie, or you're not. I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
Yeah.
You just said it was scary.
I did say it was scary. Well, the Mummy was scarier than I expected because I was like,
so you didn't enjoy the movie?
I did not enjoy the movie. But
what are you talking about?
Yeah, what?
Here's the thing.
What's your review? View it or screw it.
When I watched this movie as a child, I wanted something that was scary because I liked all the Universal monsters. And I was like, so I just didn't connect to any of the adventure shenanigans or even the tone it was taking with The Mummy. And then watching it as an adult, I was like, all right, I remember how I felt as a child. I'm going to try to meet this on its terms. It's an adventure movie. And it works a lot better, obviously, as an adventure movie. But then I was surprised. I was like, you know what? The Mummy, at least as scary as The Mummy from the 30s, I would say.
But you don't consider yourself a fan. This still sounds like you like the movie. Oh, okay.
It was fine. I mean, it was fine. It's just it's like I would never be someone who like decorates my car with the Mummy stuff.
Oh, okay. I didn't grow up with it, as I didn't grow up with many things that happened when I was growing up.
There are guns. There are a lot of guns in that movie.
I watched it for the first time a year or two ago, and I would also call it fine. I don't know. I think it's one of those things where you had to be there.
Yeah, I saw it opening night and I fucking loved it, and I still love it. But nice. I acknowledge that is pure nostalgia.
Well, here's the thing. There's something to be said for nostalgia because they don't make movies like this anymore. And it's kind of cool to just see like a little genre movie where it's like, oh, look, there's a bunch of horses.
Chris, come on. They literally remade The Mummy just a few years ago. You can't say they don't make movies like that anymore. That was a great film. No, I haven't seen it either. And
I want to, though.
I'm trolling.
Yeah. But anyway, like it's cool to see like some stunts there, and like Brendan Fraser set so many people on fire in that movie, and every time it's hilarious. Anyway. That's The Mummy. Steven, how about you? You watch anything recently?
I'm still holding on to summer, guys. It looks fall as fuck outside right now, but I'm going to start ramping up the horror watching. I have kind of a convoluted recommendation, though, I'm realizing. I watched something on a big streamer, a documentary series that I really loved over the weekend, and I'm not going to promote it unless you want to talk to me privately. But it reminded me in a very interesting way of a little documentary movie from, I think, the same year The Mummy came out, 1999, called American Movie. And this is about two kind of fuck-ups in Wisconsin who decide that they're going to pool all their resources together and make a horror film called Coven, which is spelled and should be pronounced coven, like a coven of witches, but they get it wrong and they commit to it even though they're corrected multiple times. But first they have to make a short film to like get that distributed and finance it. And these guys have gone, one of them's dead now, Mike Shank, unfortunately. I think he passed last year. But it's a really funny movie about the creative spirit and how like it can survive even the worst circumstances if an artist is truly committed, even if that artist is kind of dumb and doesn't have any talent whatsoever. And I was thinking, gosh, I never would have thought to recommend a documentary for like spooky movie season, but I think it's absolutely perfect. It's got big fall energy. Like I said, they are making a horror movie about witches, and I think it would be a great like double bill with something like the WNUF Halloween special, maybe, if you want a dose of reality and then, fake reality filtered through nostalgia. It could be a badass double feature. So that's my convoluted recommendation based on something I watched on one of the bigger streamers. Ask me about it on the Discord, maybe.
All right. Well, time to get down to business and brass tacks. We watched, like I said, The Lighthouse, which I had never seen before. Had you guys seen this before?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, baby. Saw it in theater.
I can't remember if I saw it in theater.
In a cinema.
I can't remember if I saw it in a theater, but I know I saw it when it came out, and it left a strong impression on me. Not strong enough to remember the venue I saw it in, but Chris, I take it you had not seen it.
I had not seen it. I've had the Blu-ray for years, never got around to it, was always curious about it. This is a perfect opportunity to force myself to watch it. The Lighthouse, for the uninitiated, is by Robert Eggers, like we said, who is the director of The Witch and more recently The Northman. Well known for making movies where you can't understand what the fuck anybody is saying. I did refuse to put the subtitles on, though. I put the subtitles on for one segment at the beginning, and then I was like, this ruins the vibe. I can't have these bright white letters on the screen.
You can't. You can't.
What if you can? I put subtitles on everything. I'm one of those motherfuckers that The Atlantic just wrote a think piece about.
Oh, that's crazy. We'll have to talk about that because I feel like you're not supposed to understand every word in his movies.
Yeah,
you know,
I
you're
agree.
like looking into the past. You're like an alien that's like visiting the past, and you just kind of got to go with the flow and pick up what you can. I think it's more interesting that way.
I just turn subtitles on for literally anything. It doesn't matter how discernible or not it is. It's just habit.
Yeah, no, it's legit. People do that. I'm not going to shame it. But for this movie,
I like to read my movies.
Anyway, it's a very deceptively simple story. There's a lot going on in the abstract layer of this movie, but what is tangible is Robert Pattinson plays a young man who is a new lighthouse keeper somewhere on the Atlantic, and the only other person who's taking care of the island with the lighthouse is Willem Dafoe, who's the grizzled, more seasoned lighthouse keeper. And the two are going to be locked in the lighthouse. I mean, if you know anything about this movie, you probably know this already. The two are going to be locked in the lighthouse keeper station for 4 weeks to take care of the lamp, take care of the property, and then hopefully they'll be relieved at the end of their term. And in the space of those 4 weeks, there's a lot of personality clashing. There's a lot of weird stuff happening. There's a lot of development in the relationship between the two men, and it goes into some very unexpected places, to say the least.
Oh yeah, it's probably the most accurate depiction of the three of us going to New Orleans together that I've ever seen.
Which hasn't happened yet.
Hasn't happened yet, but man, I can already tell. Spitting image.
Yeah, yes. Let's not set that template for that trip.
I'm down. That sounds great.
Where to begin?
You want to see entrails on that trip, huh, Steven?
It'd be nice.
Where to begin? Pattinson plays an ostensible straight man for a few minutes of this movie. He's the one who's trying to play by the book, and Dafoe is the crazy ass from square one, the sort of dotty old man, very strong authority figure, trying to kind of swing his dick around and exercise his authority over Pattinson. They're both amazing performances.
They are. It kind of reminded me of at the beginning of Training Day.
Yeah.
Especially when like they sit down for dinner and Willem Dafoe's like, "Here, drink this shit." And Pattinson's like, "No, drinking isn't allowed under the regulations." And he's like, "Oh, you're going to drink this shit though."
Oh, that's one of my favorite lines too is man, what don't drink best have his reasons.
I'm not sure I've ever seen so much alcohol consumed in a movie, or at least certainly not per capita. I'm not sure I've ever seen so much alcohol consumed per person in a film.
But in reality, different story.
Well, yeah, like when we went to New Orleans.
Oh, I love, speaking of swinging his dick around, Defoe's introduction is him taking the longest piss I think I've ever seen in film or otherwise, and then just ripping a couple of farts.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of Willem Dafarts in this movie.
Oh.
But yeah, the performances, I mean, that's where this movie begins and ends for me. The performances are out of this world, slam dunk home runs. It's, I think, another example of how the award givers in our society are prejudiced against weird movies and horror movies, because if this was the same movie, but it was about like two men mourning the loss of their father in a funeral parlor and not locked on an island with weird shit, this would have gotten all sorts of awards for these two. Some of the finest acting I've ever seen, and incredibly watchable.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, especially Pattinson. I mean, who I'll even give credit in the fucking Twilight movies, as y'all know. If you've heard our Twilight episode, I cut that one a lot of slack, and especially him and Case do a lot of slack. But he still always just kind of surprises me. He's along the lines of like, honestly, like Colin Farrell, like we were talking about last time, where he's easy to underestimate for me because he has that pretty boy look and that pretty boy reputation. Then it's always like, oh fuck, no, this guy can act. Like, I mean, his accent work in this alone is fucking phenomenal.
And he's not afraid to look haggard as hell, too, to really sink into a role.
I thought of that exactly. I was like, he looks at least 10 to 15 years older than he actually does in this movie, which I'm sure some of it's makeup, but I think a lot of it's just the way he carries himself and the sense of, just a person who has lived a young person, relatively, who has lived a very hard life at this point. But he's phenomenal. Dafoe is just going for broke.
He is going for broke.
It's probably my favorite Dafoe performance, and I cannot imagine him topping it. I mean, he just hits all the notes as loudly as he possibly can, and I ate it up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's ostensibly an over the top performance, but also, there is like a sense of sort of dynamics to it. Like there's a lot of screaming for sure. He does a lot of yelling, but also like just his sense of kind of like dialing it back and the way he'll build up from kind of like just a whisper up to just screaming, ranting about some shit is spellbinding to watch.
Mm-hmm. And there are scenes where he's on the other end of the verbal abuse, and he takes on this kind of almost like charmingly cowardly persona in a couple of scenes in this. From like, okay, maybe I could actually like this guy, maybe for just a second. He kind of needs a hug right now, and then he goes right back to being a demonic piece of shit. But
well, I don't even know if he's ever a demonic piece of shit. That's the most interesting thing about the movie, and sort of what makes it so watchable, at least through the first half or something. Because out of the gate, he's kind of a very archetypical disciplinarian, hard ass, etc. He's really busting Robert Pattinson's chops and how often he has to scrub the floors, etc. And you don't like him at all. And then as the movie goes on, the man, it's a very complicated relationship. You can't tell if they hate each other or they love each other. And I feel the same way. I'm like, I don't think I like Willem Dafoe, but man, I kind of want him to like me. He's kind of cool. And just kind of walking that line is something that the movie does for most of its runtime that makes it pretty compelling. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then there's nothing else. I mean, yeah, there's a pretty gorgeous setting. Well, it's austere, but it's gorgeous in its own way. This rocky island, tiny island with this one lighthouse and a couple of buildings. And there's not a lot else going on in this movie besides these two performances, is what I'm trying to say. The cinematography is really good. There's some weird beautiful things that happen, but I mean, this if you did this movie black box theater style, I don't know how much it would lose.
It would work as a play for sure. Yeah. I mean, you would lose some beautiful surreal imagery and some beautiful unsettling use of montage, but yes, it would certainly work as a play. Yeah.
Yeah, you could carry the sound design over probably to a play, I think, and that plays a pretty huge role in this too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's basically two actors, two characters, and one location with, a few little caveats to that rule, but it's pretty simple bottle episode that just cooks and cooks and cooks and cooks as these guys go further around the fucking bend. Mm-hmm. Steven and I were talking last night about, there's kind of interesting conversation around the genre of this film. I think a lot of reviews have kind of grappled with, what is it? Is it a thriller? Is it a psychological drama? Is it horror? Whatever. Answer, I think all of the above. But one of the most important ones that I don't think people necessarily have pointed out so much in discussion of this movie is it's fucking funny. And the first time that I saw it, there was stuff I was saying to Steven, there's stuff that I reacted to by laughing, and I felt like it was that sort of nervous laughter, like, I can't believe what I'm fucking seeing right now. But on this second watch, I was like, oh no, there's lots of stuff in here that they had to have known while they were shooting. This is funny. This is going to play funny. Like, we're making some degree of a comedy in this scene.
It's got some, of course it's A24, and it is a movie that I believe they financed, like Beau is Afraid, and it's got some Beau is Afraid energy to it, where I was starting to hear people talk about this movie on podcasts and stuff, industry podcasts, before it came out, and I was thinking, like, what what the fuck? Robert Eggers' new like historical, whatever it is, has a ton of fart jokes in it. Like that doesn't sound real to me. Um, and it is, and he's reveling in it. I mean, and there's a lot of, the lighthouse itself is a phallic symbol, and apparently there was a shot in this where there was a quick cut to an erect penis and then a cut back to the lighthouse. It's pretty obvious what he's doing with that sort of imagery, and it sounded juvenile to me, and I was a little nervous going into this the first time, and yet it works somehow. Didn't expect dick and fart jokes from the director of The Witch, but he gives us that and so much more that stuff isn't distracting or glaring in some way.
Yeah, and even, I don't know, the fart stuff, I don't even know how necessary it is. I don't even know if I can call it a fart joke, but the stuff I think of as funny is just kind of like the rhythm of the dialogue sometimes. It goes so over the top, and the timing of their responses and tone of responses to each other is just, I think of like the one scene where Defoe is losing his mind because Pattinson has copped to disliking Defoe's cooking, and Defoe goes on this delightful rant, including, I think the iconic line from this movie at this point is, "You're fond of me lobster, aren't ye?" Yeah. And like he just goes on this rant, and finally like Pattinson just gives in at the end after this well played pause and goes, "Fine, I like your cooking." And that was one of those moments, and there are others like that where just kind of the timing, the rhythm of it really got me.
Oh, it's so good. I just made this connection. I'll have to read, and I would bet that this could have been an influence. And I know I've brought this up on the show before. Have you guys heard of Shut Up Little Man?
No.
Sounds familiar. I don't know.
There's a series. There's a documentary about it. It was a series of like, back before, obviously long before the internet, like 80s, early 90s, when people would trade tapes around of like quote unquote viral stuff. There were these guys in, I think, San Francisco that had this older gay alcoholic couple who lived below them. And these people caused such a ruckus that they decided they had no moral qualms about recording their arguments by sticking a tape recorder out the window and hanging it down. And oh my God, I'll have to share some clips of this on the Discord for people who haven't heard it. But this is like the 19th century version of that, of just two people being stuck in a room, blasted out of their minds, driving each other so crazy that their insults are like poetry.
Wow. Huh. I'm intrigued. Yeah, I mean, we slowly learn a bit more about these guys as things go along. Like, Robert Pattinson definitely has a dark past that he's clearly trying to hide from by working on this lighthouse, and we're, kind of given a few hints about that as we go along. Defoe is the veteran on the island, and there's clearly some dark things that have happened in the past on the island as well, so we get some kind of plot breadcrumbs on that level. We also have some unsettling stuff going on with seagulls. Certainly, I mean, honestly, I'm going to say move over Hitchcock, most unsettling use of seagulls or birds in general, I think, in a film. The fucking seagulls in this are... But I mean, they're also funny.
Yeah. Yeah, oh my God, the seagull stuff is just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Like, awards should have been given.
Yeah. These fucking seagulls are just badgering Pattinson as he tries to go about his work, doing all this like sort of drudgery that Defoe has assigned him on the island. He's just dogged by this one-eyed seagull, who Defoe like threatens him, "Don't kill the fucking seagull because bad things will happen if you kill a seabird." And Pattinson eventually snaps in a horrifying fucking scene and just beats the absolute shit out of this bird in one very unsettling shot, and that's kind of the catalyst for things really starting to go downhill.
I did recall that moment from the first time I saw this when I revisited it, and my jaw was on the floor still the second time. The number of times that he whips that seagull against the water tank or whatever it is,
the cistern,
I mean, it's deeply unsettling stuff, masterfully done.
Yeah, just the force and brutality with which he does it, too. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's all, I'm sure he's just holding a fucking rag with feathers attached to it because it's whipping back and forth so fast you can't tell what it is. Like, obviously, no seagulls were harmed in the making of this motion picture, but it's still very, very upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much we can get into before we go to the spoiler room, but I kind of felt like karma caught up to me on this movie because last episode I was talking about how, I'm a sophisticated person now and I like watching movies that are poetic and don't make a lot of literal sense and how that's my new thing. And then this movie kind of came along like, oh, you think you're that guy now. Here.
It broke you.
And maybe I'm not as much of that guy as I thought, because apart from the plot, it's not a super plotty movie. There's just so much symbolism and myth and abstract stuff and surreal stuff in this movie that it becomes a bit of a chore to try to figure out what the hell is going on if you fight it, and if you don't just I guess I was fighting it. It was hard for me to just kind of lean into it and be like, all right, this is just all vibes. Don't care too much about what's going on, because it's like like Patrick said, it's a little like bottle episode. We got these pretty interesting characters in a very clearly defined situation, and then when you start making their relationship and their relationship to everything around them very nebulous, I kind of check out a little bit. So the back half of this movie didn't quite do it for me, and I'm not sure what it all meant. So that's a little frustrating for me. How did you guys feel?
I guess so. I can relate to that, I think, to some degree. On my first watch, I was like, I appreciated the audacity of it. I appreciated the craft as far as performances and the visuals. But I also was a little bit like, okay, what did that all mean? Especially coming off The Witch, a movie which I think all of us love, that is pretty clear, I think, in the end, as far as what it's trying to say, what its themes are. But this time around, I think just because I was better prepared for what I was getting into, I was just surfing on the vibes. I mean, I enjoyed it in the first time around, but I enjoyed it even more this time. I think it's interesting that you kind of brought up, Chris, what does it all mean? And Eggers has actually addressed this, and I thought it was interesting. He said with this movie, he was more interested in questions than answers. And I don't think there necessarily is an answer to this. It's a vibes movie. It was inspired by a horrifying real life incident. I don't know if you guys have read about that at all. But I think he just saw an interesting situation and kind of built a fucked up movie around it. Steven, what are your thoughts on Chris's prompt?
So I'm once again having fucked up audio issues that the listeners may or may not be able to detect depending on how they're listening and how much they're paying attention. And I was thinking going into this, you know what? That's okay, because I've seen this twice and I don't have anything smart to say about it. I only have superlatives. Both times I watched this movie, I had a fucking blast. I did not care that I didn't have any kind of big, cathartic, meaningful takeaway from it. I read a little bit online trying to see, where Eggers' head was at. And yeah, he's talking about, Greek mythology and Poe. Apparently this was inspired in part by like an unfinished Edgar Allan Poe short story.
Just so thinly. I actually went down that rabbit hole.
Really?
Today.
Okay.
I read the short story because Edgar Allan Poe's manuscript, he was working on this when he died, apparently. And it's like 4 paragraphs, and it's just the basic, like, well, I'm a lighthouse keeper, gotta get away from it all. And it's like day 2, and then he just stops writing. So there's really not a lot there.
Well, I'm glad that you did that research for us, because I didn't have time to, and I was curious. But this is all to say, I was like Patrick, I was surfing around that lighthouse on the vibes, which is a great image. And it's just so like it. This is what I go to the movies for. This movie has absolutely everything I could ever want. It's so entertaining. It's so well done for what it is. It's so weird, but for me, it was easy both times to just commit to his vision and this experience and just let it wash over me, and have a blast with. So, if he had any like larger ambitions, like good, great for him. People can go study this movie. He said he wanted Freud and Jung to be munching their popcorn watching it, and have an argument afterward. That's cool. I guess I'm simple. I didn't really need any of that deeper subtext to enjoy this.
I think our next Amon shirt needs to say "Surfing on Vibes."
So funny bit of trivia for you, maybe. The A24 had a charity auction to benefit a food bank in New York City, where they auctioned a whole bunch of props from the lighthouse. They auctioned a whole bunch of shit, but they tried unsold in that auction was the light from the lighthouse, which is 6 feet tall, 4 feet wide, 800 pounds, burns
perfect woman,
burns kerosene. And I think the starting bid was like $50,000 or $100,000 or something, and they were probably hoping that someone would buy it to actually put in a lighthouse, because
it's functional.
As far as I know, it's an actual functional lighthouse lens that like a historical society might want. But
wait, what was the starting bid? Sorry, my cats were starting.
I don't remember. I think it was $50,000 to $100,000.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that would have to be expensive, because the craft that goes into making those things in real life is insane, and they're gorgeous.
It's a beautiful piece. Oh my god!
Well, and they included shipping and installation costs into the starting bid, because you got to move this 800-pound thing and then install it somewhere, probably in a lighthouse. But yeah, I don't know what happened to that thing. There's a chance that they donated it to a lighthouse or something somewhere, but it is a real light, and it was unwon in the auction. No one bought it.
Well, no one wanted to. They knew the dangers of looking directly into it. It's cursed.
Yeah, it's sort of amazing to me that they actually built that light. Like I figured any lighthouse you go into would have one of those in it already, and I assume they shot at least some of this in an actual lighthouse.
Did they not just build the whole fucking lighthouse?
That seems like a very Eggers thing to do. I mean, like the Witch, they built those houses in the way they would have been built at the time. You look at the clothing in this, holy shit, the sweater action. Like I fully buy that they built this all from scratch.
I think they built it. But yeah.
Well, I feel like we were basically on our way to reviewing it without actually saying view it, cue it, or screw it here. So should we do that and go down to the spoiler room?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with Steven, because I think he already tipped his hand.
Oh, I had more than I already gave my whole review. This movie rules. Holy shit. This is like the highest view it. I was a little scared to revisit it, thinking I might not have as good of a time. I might see some flaws in it. I was completely spellbound all over again. There's just nothing like this. It's a I would say this is a classic. I will call it a horror classic. I'm tired of people pussyfooting, not you guys, but the critics at large pussyfooting around the genre. Let's just call it horror. I mean, any horror person, I think, can find something to enjoy in this. But I know I was shocked. People, that I work with, who hopefully don't listen to this podcast too often, will ask me, "Oh, so what are you reviewing next week?" I was amazed at the number of people who have pretty normal taste in stuff that said, "Oh my god, that was a crazy." They actually went to see it because of the leads. So I like that it was also able to Trojan horse some weirdness into the cinemas when it came out too, because it's got Pattinson and Defoe. It's just it's awesome. I have no complaints. I've already said a lot of nice things about it, and we'll probably add some more praise on the pile in the spoiler room. Patrick.
I mean, second all that, I also already pretty much called my shot. It's a big view it for me. Again, really liked it the first time, and honestly loved it even more the second time. It kind of flew by too. So I'll just leave it at that, because we've already gushed enough. Stephen and I have already gushed enough, but I'm curious what Chris's rating is.
I'm going to give it a cue it. Sorry. I did like it a lot. I thought it was pretty watchable, pretty unique. The craft is all there. Everything you guys said is accurate. It's just, I don't know. It gets so weird, seemingly for its own sake, that I just can't really condone it. It's sort of the caricature of what people think of when they think of an art film. Like, all right, we're going to have a black and white film. It's going to be shot at a 4:3 aspect ratio. You're not going to be able to understand what anybody's fucking saying. There's going to be this movie doesn't pass the Bechdel test. I'll tell you that.
Oh, not by a long shot.
There's gonna be two men grumbling to each other in a lighthouse. You're gonna see some shit. You're not gonna and then the movie's gonna end, and you're not gonna know what the fuck happened. It's sort of the caricature of like the art film that like people are gonna make somebody watch, and they're gonna hate it. I didn't hate it. It's just it's a hard movie to recommend. I wish that it were like maybe 10% more dialed back from what it is. But that just might be me going in with the wrong expectations. If I watch it again, I'm sure I will at some point. I don't know how soon that's going to be, but if I watch it again, I'll probably have a little bit of a more appropriate appreciation of it. But cue it, not bad by any stretch, but just a little hard for me to recommend. All right. Well, we're going to go to the spoiler room, and we're going to talk about all the weird stuff that happens in the lighthouse. Before we do that, let me remind you that we are available on social media at AmonCast, EHMON Cast, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're also available on Discord. We have a little Discord community where we talk about movies and all sorts of other horror stuff. It's a very fun place to hang out. The link to that is in our show notes. And you can go to everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com and see possibly a directory of some of the movies we've watched, and you can buy some stuff. Everybody likes stuff. You can buy some stuff with a Every Horror Movie on Netflix art illustration upon it. So with that said, we're going to go down to the spoiler room and spoil everything about The Lighthouse. So check it out now if you want to, or follow us up this time maybe into the Lighthouse Tower. And we will spoil everything in just a few seconds. Welcome back. We're up here in the spoiler lantern, getting ready to spoil everything about The Lighthouse. And
with our film critic Bob Mondello.
Oh boy, there's a lot to talk about.
There is. I want to talk about Mermussy.
There's a lot of Mermussy in this, yeah.
Actually, there's not. There's like a split second of Mermussy, and yet I feel like...
Wow.
I feel like that is the defining image. Like, how can that not be the one image everyone remembers from this movie?
Yeah, they should put that on the poster.
I was stunned this time around because I felt like it lingered a little more. I felt like I saw more of it, but it's strictly a flash. But you do see a mermaid's vagina or genitals. I don't even know if it's a vagina, if it's a mermaid. Maybe they have different parts.
I mean, it looks like a vagina. That's not, I don't know how to comment on it. I'm getting myself in trouble.
It's an indelible image, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, tying into our spoilers, there's certainly a mermaid who recurs in this movie, who may or may not just be a figment of Pattinson's imagination. But yeah, that's one spoiler at least. You see a mermaid's genitals.
It's a mermaid. It's not a good vibes mermaid. There's more of a siren sort of thing. It's like stay away from that
this
thing.
Is not.
That thing's gonna kill you, maybe. But let's say that the one of the central conflicts in this movie from pretty early on is that Willem Dafoe is the, haggard, experienced lighthouse keeper who's keeping Pattinson sort of under his thumb. And Willem Dafoe gets to go up into the lantern and take care of the lights. And Pattinson doesn't get to do that. And that kind of creates some hostility between the two.
Well, and when we say gets to, there's no actual rule system that says this is the case other than Willem Dafoe says this is the case. He's basically like, I'm the one who gets to go up into the light. You do literally everything else. If you have a problem with it, fuck you.
Right.
Yeah, and he's got the key, so Pattinson can't get up there if he wants to.
Yeah.
Right. And Dafoe is also going up there at night and stripping naked and staring into this light for seemingly hours on end. And so there's something weird going on with Dafoe in this light. Pattinson wants to go up there and see what it's all about. And I thought this was one of the most interesting aspects of the movie, and this is the one that sort of got my mind going and thinking about, you know, what this movie might be trying to say or what it might represent. And I don't know if I have a smart theory, but the first thing that came to mind for me was just like, here you got two guys who are both like working class. They don't have a lot going on for them. They're both fucking on this rock taking care of a lighthouse for weeks at a time. Like they're virtually the stature that Dafoe has over William Pattinson is seniority, and it's all kind of
Chris, why do you keep
it's
saying
Willem Pattinson?
William Pattinson. You keep saying William Pattinson.
I said William Pattinson.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's just say that for the rest of the show. It's William Pattinson and Robert
all jumbled
Dafoe.
Up. I'm all
James
jumbled
Patterson.
But so he has like some seniority over Pattinson, but it's kind of arbitrary, and like they're not really. The arbitrary nature of him not letting him look at this light becomes so important. It reminded me of one of my favorite scary story to tell in the dark, The Bed by the Window. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where so long story short, there's three old guys and they're like in a hospital or a nursing home, and one of them has the bed by the window and looks out the window and is always talking about what he sees in the city, and then he dies, and then the next guy goes in and he sees all the same shit, and the third guy's like, I gotta fucking look out that window. I'm fucking in this room staring at a wall. I gotta get over in that bed, but I'm only gonna get in that bed when I have the seniority, when if I gotta kill this guy. So he hides the guy's heart medication. The guy dies in the middle of the night. The killer moves over to the window and he looks out and all he sees is a brick wall.
Ooh,
and anyway, I really love that story. It really creeps me out for some reason. But like just that sort of thing where it's like, here's some guys who just sort of like have arbitrarily decided that like this is the status symbol, like to be able to hang out at the light. And so it kind of felt like something, you know, analogous to the things that divide, you know, working class people in our society and in our time. Sort of as seen in Us also, where you got like the two guys who work at the same company and they're like, damn, he has a boat. His boat's bigger. And like all that stuff. Just like, who cares about looking in a fucking lantern? But it becomes the most important thing just because he can't do it, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting.
Well, and then there's definitely some supernatural, almost spiritual power that seems to be associated with the lighthouse. I mean, I don't think it's just an arbitrary sort of status symbol, but there seems to be some power Dafoe is soaking up from it almost. And certainly when Pattinson finally makes his way up there at the end, some shit happens to him. For
yeah,
sure.
But it's like, does it really have magical powers in the text of the movie, or is that just is the magic just the importance that they've assigned to it, possibly filtered through magical realism stuff, where metaphors become real in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, again, more questions than answers is what Eggers is trying to create with this. But I mean, certainly that's a question you can ask about a lot of stuff in this, especially because I think, Pattinson is essentially our protagonist. And I think we're seeing pretty much all of this through his point of view. And as he descends into madness, there were definitely several things where I was like, wait, is this actually happening, or is this his subjective perception of what's happening? You know, and it's, again, more questions than answers. There's not an answer to that necessarily.
And there's so much of it. It's kind of hard to recap it all because there's just so many different threads, so many different ways that they all go mad. It's often montaged together in unusual ways. It's a trip, but it's kind of like The Shining.
Yeah,
it's overtly like The Shining at one point, but it's the same sort of theme.
The axe chase.
There's axe chasing involved. But just this whole like, oh, we're going to be caretakers of this place for a season. And, you know, we're going to be drinking and we're going to go crazy. And, you know, we're going to conjure up all sorts of evil things that may or may not be real.
Yeah, it's kind of like camping with the two of us.
Yeah,
this movie really hit close to home.
Yeah,
in so many ways.
I'm glad that there was no mermaid involved. Only if we had Grays and a mermaid in camping, I don't know what we would have done.
A mermaid in what's that called? Crooked Lake.
Yeah, the Crooked Lake Grays. Sorry, I can't talk about them.
But I mean, suffice to say, I think the main sort of plotty things that do happen in this are a big storm rolls in, a gigantic nor'easter that prevents Pattinson getting off the island when he was supposed to, which is very bad news for him because he's already basically on his last nerve with Defoe in this entire situation. And of course, this storm goes on for fucking ever and basically takes up the last half of the movie. Is just them trying to battle out the elements. Or sort of wait out the elements. Their rations are destroyed by the water, and so they just start drinking so much booze that's been squirreled away, and then they start making booze out of kerosene and honey or something like that.
Yeah, they start mixing up the medicine because they run out of liquor.
Yep. In the meantime, we find out that Pattinson's dark secret is he didn't quite kill a guy, but didn't save a guy that he could have saved, and has intense guilt about this because he did want to kill the guy, but decided in a crucial moment to just let the dude die. So he's haunted by that. He's now assumed that guy's identity, and Defoe's kind of secret, which I guess, no, I think this comes up fairly early, right? I don't remember. Is that Pattinson's predecessor on the island actually died? And late in the movie, we find some evidence that Defoe likely killed him and chopped him up and threw him in lobster traps in the sea. But that's another one of those things where I was kind of like, okay, is it real or actually seeing this or not? Yeah, exactly.
And also at that point, the lines between Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are becoming blurry.
Oh yeah, because they actually, isn't there a point where they actually speak as each other or call each other by each other's name, something like that?
Something like that. And then, you know, we see Willem Dafoe chase Robert Pattinson with an axe, and then he quite convincingly tells Robert Pattinson that no, actually, you chased me with the axe.
Oh, right.
And then, you know, there's just this whole thing where it's like their current conditions, their interests, their pastimes, their histories, their names, their attitudes are all melding together by the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have the same name. We should maybe point out too.
At least at that point. And at that point, it's just they're both unreliable narrators at that point, so we don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they're unreliable. Everything. They're so drunk. I mean, they almost kiss at one point, which is
there is homoeroticism in this movie. There is gay panic in this.
That's
movie.
A good scene.
Yeah,
it's a great scene, and I wouldn't even say. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of gay panic, but there is kind of a mutual affection between these two, I think, over the course of the movie that may be genuine, and that they're fighting inwardly themselves.
Sure, yeah. There's definitely affection, but it goes back and forth so often. The characters as individuals and as a duo, like the dynamic between them is so just volatile that, you know, they go from sitting around embracing each other, drunk as fuck, telling each other stories to, you know, moments later trying to beat the shit out of each other for some minor transgression. It's just very, very volatile.
Well, one of the themes is clearly masculinity. I'm not entirely sure what its thesis is about masculinity, but that's a thread in the movie all the way down to the phallic lighthouse. And what I took away from that stuff is just that, like, you know, it's not socially acceptable, largely in our society, and then probably certainly in, you know, whatever the hell decade this takes place in. The only way that men are allowed to be close to each other is fighting each other, you know? Yeah. So we have these two people who, like, the love and the violence are always dancing with each other because it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that comes to, I mean, that's illustrated no better than when they're literally about to kiss and then they like push each other away and start boxing.
Yeah.
It's a little on the nose, but I'm glad it was on the nose because I might not have picked up what they were putting down if it were more subtle. So, because I'm not smart.
But yeah, Pattinson eventually gets the upper hand over Defoe. Seems to bury him alive in a truly horrifying scene. This was another image that really stuck with me from the first time around. Is like Defoe has been so beaten up at this point that he just lays in the hole while Pattinson shovels dirt on top of him and goes on another one of his fucking god tier monologues, of which Defoe has many in this movie. And it's a close up of his face and he's like literally swallowing dirt. I thought about this both times. I was like, what were they I really hope they were shoveling like brownie crumbs into his mouth or something. Because he gets a lot of fucking dirt in his mouth.
It's hard to watch. There's a lot of stuff. Like we were just talking about when they start boxing. I mean, that looked so real to me. Those first couple of blows. That this time around, I actually was like worried that Pattinson might have broken one of Defoe's ribs or something with that first punch. It's all done. I mean, Robert Eggers, master of realism in period pieces, and even those little things just. Carry so much weight that I'm worried about the well-being of people on set. I'm sure they were fine.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's quickly revealed that even though Defoe seems to be buried, he returns very soon after. Wait, what happens then? He comes back with the axe and...
He comes back with an axe, and the axe has already been established because Defoe started to chop up the little boat that Pattinson was trying to escape the island on, and then he gets buried alive, and then Pattinson is going about his business doing other things. He's either drinking or he's working on getting up into the lantern, something like that.
Oh yeah, because he's stolen the keys at this point.
And Defoe jump scares him and basically hits him in the shoulder with an axe, but then he is overpowered and he is killed by Pattinson.
Yeah, Pattinson
just grabs the axe. Yeah.
And this is like the third time that he's done, because even before he got buried alive, they have just a blowout fight in the flooded lighthouse station, at which point Pattinson's seeing the mermaid, he's seeing tentacles, he's seeing birds, he's seeing the guy he killed in the forest, he's seeing all kinds of shit. He's
seeing Defoe as like Triton or Poseidon or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So what's that all mean? I don't know, but it's a visual spectacle.
But he finally seems to conclusively kill Defoe. He goes up to the lighthouse and sees
gazes
some shit
upon its beauty.
Yeah, we don't really know exactly what he finds in it. He seems to love it at first and then to be horrified and scream and falls down the fucking steps and it's like seagulls picking his carcass
while he's still like moving. He's still alive.
Is he? I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's still alive.
Wow. Oh,
and he's got seagull shit all over him, which also looks kind of like cum, which is a thing in this movie too. There's a lot. Going on there.
There is a lot of cum in this movie.
Damn. It's wild. It's wild. What does it all mean?
What's it all mean? I don't know. And here's the thing: thought experiment. If you watch this movie and it said at the end, it said directed by Eli Roth, how would you feel?
I'd be like, good for you, Eli Roth.
Okay.
Wow, you really leveled up. How did you feel, Chris, when you saw, maybe you didn't see that Chris Columbus produced this movie?
The Chris Columbus?
Yes. I think I seem to remember from when this came out that he was like kind of crucial in getting this movie made. The director,
he knows some things about, I don't know. I was going to make a Home Alone joke. Like they're almost Home Alone in this movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that's your movie.
That's your movie. And it's like, I just feel like we're kind of doing a disservice by not really drilling down into it more. But like I said, there's just so much going on in such a nonsensical fashion. And none of us know what it's trying to say. It's more questions than answers. So it's hard to really talk definitively about it other than to just say how it made us feel. Certainly is interesting.
It is. Chris, a little disappointed in you. I don't think I've heard you mention the aspect ratio once.
I was gonna say no. He did very briefly.
Oh,
yeah, okay. When he was saying it was like your stereotypical art house movie, but I do wonder how you felt about the aspect ratio.
Well, I liked it. I don't know if it was 4:3 or if it was like 1:17 or whatever the fuck, but it's a square aspect ratio. I thought what I liked, and I don't know, I don't think this was intentional, but especially coming off of watching The Mummy, I thought it did a very good job of like looking like an old Universal Studios movie. It's very square and it's black and white, but the contrast and the lighting and the production design give it a very distinct look that even goes beyond, because it's not that unusual to see a movie that's, a square aspect ratio or in black and white, but this looks like a movie from a different time. It looks like, Frankenstein or something. And I thought that was very cool. I thought the cinematography was some of the best I've ever seen. I was relieved to see that this got an Academy Award for cinematography, or it got the nomination. I'm sorry. It got nominated. Because if it wasn't nominated, I was gonna go mad like the guy in the movie.
It's stunningly beautiful. And I would hazard a guess, though I'd have to do some research, that this was probably meant to look like the photographic capabilities of the era it was set in. I mean, this was set in a time where people could at least take photographs, film photographs. Mm-hmm. And I have to wonder if that isn't kind of the dimensions that were common at the time. But it really does feel like it's kind of transported back in time, though.
Yeah, that was kind of what it struck me as being, either the dimensions of like old film, old movies, or old photographs.
Yeah, but I do prefer the 2:1 aspect ratio that we saw in Killing of a Sacred Deer. That's my favorite aspect ratio. I didn't mention that last episode.
Yeah. I think we need an offshoot podcast called Chris's favorite aspect ratio. And I'll guess just to cheer you on, because I love hearing about it.
But no, it looks great. And then I don't know, I watched it on Blu-ray. I don't know what you guys did, but you did watch it on Blu-ray?
I did, yes. Fantastic,
because I was thinking the whole time I was watching it, the noise pattern in this thing probably translates terribly on streaming. So I'm glad I watched it on Blu-ray. It lost the cinematography to Roger Deakins in 1917, which...
It's Deakins, man.
All right, it's a cinematography podcast time. Here's my opinion on that. Roger Deakins, one of the greatest cinematographers to ever do it. That might be his first Oscar. He has two. Let's see. He's
famously snubbed over the years, right?
Famously snubbed over the years. Okay, so he won for Blade Runner 2049, and then he won again for 1917. So that's good. He needs laurels. He should have won Academy Awards for probably 6 to 10 more movies than that earlier in his career. I haven't seen 1917, but as I understand it, it's one of these long take movies, right?
Oh, yeah.
That pisses me off, man. I don't like that. I don't like the gimmick. I don't think that's good cinematography. I think it's the criticism they say of every category at the Oscars. It's not the best, it's the most. Not best acting, it's most acting. Not
it's best, a stunt. Yeah, it's kind of a stunt, but it's fucking hard to do well, I imagine.
Yeah,
well, I mean, to light something like that while the camera's moving.
Maybe I should watch the movie.
It's a fake long take movie, though. Like, I mean, it's like Birdman. It has the appearance
most
of
them
being
are
one take. Yeah, it is not actually one take, though.
I'm sure the cinematography in that movie is great. It just is a little sad for me to see something so unique like this lose to a movie that has a gimmick behind the cinematography. Although I guess if it were the other way around, you could say this is a gimmick too, right? So what do I know?
Yeah. I mean,
your first mistake is caring about who gets an Oscar.
I was going to say,
that's true.
At least this was nominated, so it's going to reach a wider audience, probably, or did, because it was in the public conversation more. But like, who gives a shit? The Oscars are bullshit. They're usually way off.
Yeah, well, we need to talk about a spin-off podcast. We could talk about the shortcomings of the Academy and their terrible, middle of the road taste for years, and people have already. So
are you excited then, Patrick, for the upcoming NOSFERATU by Robert Eggers?
I am, of course.
Yes.
He's been cooking on that one for a long time. He's been teasing that for a long time.
He's been teasing that. I mean, I could be wrong. Internet, call me out. But I think that was announced and like locked in before this got made. That was going to be his follow-up to The Witch, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But now it seems like there's the strike, and maybe A24 can get around that with a waiver. But it seems like it's actually going to happen now with Bill Skarsgård. I would assume playing Nosferatu.
Isn't Defoe? I thought Defoe was playing Nosferatu.
Oh, even better.
No, it's Bill Skarsgård as Nosferatu. Willem Dafoe as Professor Alban Eberhard von Franz.
Oh, okay.
Whoever that is. I don't fucking know.
I don't know the Dracula legend well enough to know.
I don't know. But yeah, that'll be fun. Have either of you seen The Northman?
Still haven't.
Sadly, no.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to have a movie night for that, huh?
I mean, we have a podcast where somebody could select that as a movie to review.
Is it A24?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
It's not really horror, though.
It looks brutal as hell, though. I mean, and it's got some... I've seen clips from it, and like it's got some pretty dark fantasy elements to it, it looks like.
The Northman is not A24.
Wow, I'm stunned. Okay.
Sorry. He went commercial.
Well, I hope it comes to Netflix, if we're allowed to say that out loud.
Hopefully we're cutting out like 50% of the last like 20 minutes.
We're just wrong about everything.
Can we? Yeah, also I feel like we're just bullshitting. Can we land this plane?
All right, well, what the hell are we watching next time? Patrick, right? Patrick's turn to pick.
Yes, I was trying to decide between two, and I decided to go with the more deranged choice of the two. We are going to be watching Gaspar Noé's, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
You're correct.
Climax.
Oh, good, because I need to be forced to watch a Gaspar Noé movie. That's the only way it's going to happen, but I've heard good things about this one.
Have you not seen anything of his?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I've seen Irreversible. Okay. Yeah, I actually love Irreversible, even though it's horrific to sit through.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I saw Climax in the theater. I guess I'll reveal early that I did love it. I mean, I'm not going to pull any punches on that, but it's an experience, and I want to talk to people about it because I don't really know much of anyone else who's seen it. So looking forward to discussing it with my buddies.
That sounds fun.
Wow, I don't think I've ever heard of this.
The film.
It's a time. Steel yourself.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, that'll be in 2 weeks. We'll be watching Climax, the A24 film on Blu-ray.
Oh, and coincidentally, Chris, it stars our modern day mummy, Sofia Boutella.
Perfect. Is Tom Cruise in it?
No. I don't think Tom would quite get into this vibe. Although I don't know. Tom, I'll give him credit. He's done a few dark things. Nothing this dark though.
All right. So that'll be in 2 weeks. As like I said before, catch up with us on social media or on Discord if you can't get enough of us and you want to reach out sometime in that next 2 weeks. But otherwise, we will see you then. We'll be watching Climax. For every horror movie or every A24 movie on Blu-ray, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
And I've, as always, been Steven.
See you later.